Hey, it's Tanya.
We are we are here together once again, Anthony. My gosh, I knew you way before we did our post-traumatic thriving interview, right, through that podcast. I just love the title from Park Bench to Park Avenue. At the end of the day, all of us who are trying to find ourselves, oh my God, we would love to be on Park Avenue. But in order for us to kind of get there, my God, you had to go through, you were the Costa Mesa, the Huntington Beach, you were the hookup for trauma, for let's talk about your history, because that is what I want people to know about and now you're opening up, right, Brown Manor. We need to talk to where did you come from? What inspired you to open up this manor? Because living in Laguna, being born and raised in Laguna, and then traveling, to LA, which is an hour away, but in traffic, I mean, you know the lay of the land. But you really have taken your personal experience of addiction and homelessness, and you've turned it into God's work. And I want to honor that, because we need people more like you. So, very first question, it's going to be uncomfortable. Where were you in the very beginning that made you feel like this is where I belong? Where were you in your darkest moment?
Well, thank you for that question. Knowing you always get right to the point.
Yeah, I get to it. I don't sugarcoat shit.
I see. And it's fascinating, because my darkest moment, as I detailed in my book and everything, my life, I was raised to think differently. I come from a volatile environment, at home and out in the streets. It was for lack of a better term, it was only the strong survive. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was raised to do, just survive. I wasn't raised, when I look back at it, I wasn't raised to live. I was raised to survive.
Right.
And so coming from...
Can you repeat that again? I wasn't raised to live. I was raised... I want you to repeat that again.
Yeah, I wasn't really raised to live. I was raised to survive. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge difference in that. Surviving is... you take the element that you're given and you make the best of it. Living is you take the best that you can and then change the element that you are in. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that till later on. And so here I am, from a little kid, taught that might makes right. Take what you can, because nobody's going to ever give you anything. And just go out and do whatever you can to make it. And that encompassed whether you had to steal or fight or do drugs. All of that was all part of it, because that was the environment that I was raised in. I mean, God bless my mom, and hindsight is 20/20, and I always thought that the way she raised me was abusive. But when I look at it, that's what she was taught. It was a cycle, right, of violence that continued, a cycle of trauma that continued, and I'm glad that I'm aware of it now so I could break that cycle. But that's what she was taught, and I was born in the 60s, and I was born before civil rights, and so that played a part. I'm sure my mom never heard of the book that was written by Dr. Spock on how to raise children. I'm sure that wasn't in her vocabulary. But what she did know, that if you can, I don't want to say punish, but if you can discipline a certain way, then the behavior will stop. But now we know, if you discipline somebody in a violent way, that reinforces the fact that that's the way they will discipline other people.
I had no idea that you were disciplined in that generation. I mean, when Randy and we did our post-traumatic thriving, wow, what you just said was so powerful and effective. that you were raised really in an era where it's, to us, it would be education, right? But to you, being of who you are, African American, a black man, a proud black man. Can I just say that?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I don't see like, I just don't see color. I just feel like we are all God's people. And I really, my God, just from you saying that, I was like, okay, we need to expand the horizon, because that was very powerful what you said.
Yeah, and I don't see color either. Unfortunately, there's still specks of society that sees it.
That they do.
And go ahead.
And really, and it was an educational moment. It's a family friend of ours, and she's a proud black woman. And I was like, my God, like, you're seeing color? I'm like, you've been part of our family for 30 years. Like, we don't see color, but I don't see what you have gone through with the way my mom, Dita, right? Dear Dita, like, she welcomed like everybody. We never saw diversity. And maybe this is why I wanted to really connect with you, so people really understand diversity. So talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And again, a lot of it has to do with the environment that you're raised in. Mm-hmm. Because I'm from originally a little small town called Steubenville, and it's on the East Coast, and it's really fascinating because as a youth, I've only been exposed to two different races. That's the black community and the white community. Now, when I went to California, a whole mixed bag. I mean, we had the Asian community, which the Filipino community. I mean, the Hispanic community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as a youth, I didn't know that. And it's really funny because when I first went to California way back then, I was sort of in culture shock. I mean, like, here's a Hispanic person. I've never seen a Hispanic person. And they're speaking a language that I didn't know. And I'm like, well, what is this? And unfortunately or fortunately, by the time I got to California, I was already strung out on drugs. In the drug community, you have everybody involved. And so it was easy to transition into that atmosphere. So
talk about that. I want you to get really raw, because you and we both battle with, addiction. We both do. And we're both part of the community. So, but talk about that. Like, I want people to really, resonate with you. When it comes to me, people don't resonate with me unless it's like domestic violence, I think. But with you, I think this is what we need. Because you, for me, in my heart, you are kind of the founding father of these manners. And hey, it could be Brown Manor in Detroit, Chicago, wherever, I mean, you really have a platform. So talk about your darkest secrets, because I want people to know about that.
Okay, well, my secrets aren't a secret.
It's not a secret, right? But your story.
Right. I put myself, the main reason why I do put myself in public, because I want people to understand that you're not alone.
Right.
I want people to understand that they're not the only individuals experiencing certain things. Like for me, my drug addiction started at an early age. I started drinking when I was probably 6 years old. I remember stealing beer off the coffee table with my mom and her friends and drinking, and I liked the way alcohol felt. As I grew older, I learned that through all the hurt, whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological, alcohol numbed it, so it didn't matter after a while. I didn't know about the whole addiction cycle. I didn't know that, eventually I'll develop a craving that would make me not be able to stop drinking, Or I didn't know that later on my drinking and using would be so far out of control it didn't matter what the consequences was, I still would drink and use. Mm-hmm. And so at that age of 6, it was pretty much confined into my house. Then at the age of 9, when I seen my mom had got shot, then that changed my attitude towards society. Because even to this day, that's still an unknown mystery. Now, my brother has his idea of what's going on because he's older than me. But as for me, I thought it was one specific individual that I remember. I felt the police didn't solve that, and so I had a resentment against society in itself. I mean, she lived, but I had a resentment, and the way that I dealt with that was to continue to drink. Around 11 years old, I started using, marijuana, and then from that, I started using harder drugs. But those still allow me to mask how I felt deep down inside. Here I was, a kid that never knew really what fun was, because it was all about survival. How do I...
You're 11 years old when you're supposed to live your life, have a great time, and my God.
Yeah.
And
I
would
would go
the decisions.
Huh?
And you had to make the decision.
I had to, and she survived, but still, I was drinking and using, walking around feeling the way I felt. I was always angry. I was always resentful. I just didn't feel like, anybody cared. And then I would go to school with that behavior and act out in school. And then I would get consequences from my teachers, then go home and get another consequence. So there was no winning. And then that just became a normal life. It's like, okay, well, if there's no winning, so why even try? And so then that's when my drinking and using exploded. I started doing harder drugs. Probably by the age of 13, I was injecting drugs, and just, it didn't matter. And then at 14, I ran away from home, and that just really opened the Pandora's box to being able to act out, have no rules, do as much drinking and drugging as I felt. And it didn't matter what I did in society, because the consequences, no matter what I did anyway, well, it was going to be the same. I was going to get punished. So I had a mindset of, if I'm going to get punished, then why even try to obey any rules? Why obey any laws? And so that became an expectation. And I didn't realize this until I got older and started actually going through a lot of
I love
therapy.
that word expectation. Sorry to interrupt, but I love that word expectation because it's so bad, but yet it's so powerful. Mm-hmm. What are our expectations for ourselves, expectations for other people? So
right.
Continue your story. Sorry.
And I fulfilled those expectations. If I'm gonna get a consequence, then why not do the action?
Right.
And so I broke the law, and it's like, okay, you're gonna lock me up anyway. And so that's the way my life was, and so I lived that way from 14 all the way up to 37. The difference is the environment. Now, from 14 to 18, I was homeless on the East Coast, and in the wintertime, as you know, it gets cold out here.
Yeah.
And so where am I to go at 14 years old in the wintertime? So I started living in abandoned houses and things of that nature, and that provided shelter. I was scared to go back home, because when I did go home that one time, as soon as my mom seen me, she was happy to see me, but she ended up putting me in the military. She put me in the Navy. And later on, I found out that they discharged me from the Navy because I was too young. She actually falsified my records going in. And so here I am. I'm feeling rejected at home. I'm feeling rejected at school. Very alone. Very alone. The Navy doesn't want me. And so it's like,
nobody wants me.
Nobody wants me. Nobody wants me. But I can drink and do drugs, and that crowd accepted me. And that's how my life was, and that was my mindset. That's how I developed into the person that I was. And so at 18, my friend decided, let's go to California. Well, I ain't doing nothing else. So I came to California homeless with that same mentality. No rules, nobody cares, I can do what I want. And that just spiraled downhill. I started doing more drugs, started getting involved in more criminal activity, and next thing you know, I'm spending time going in and out of prisons. And so again, my expectations, I'm supposed to go to prison. That's part of what I do.
That was
and that became my norm. And I share this with people because that is not the life you're supposed to lead.
Right.
It isn't, and I had to find out the hard way. And I want to be an example for a lot of people out there who need to break that chain, because I didn't realize it. I've already traveled the path. And from going in and out of prison, later on when I decided to get my life in order, I have a criminal record. Now I have to deal with that, and it's hard to get a criminal record. For one thing, I quit school in the 8th grade. And so here I am at 37 years old when I finally decide to get my life in order. I have an 8th grade education, I'm homeless, and I have a criminal record. And I'm like, okay, I want to change my life. Well, that takes work. That takes work. And the catalyst of all of this is from 23 years of being homeless, I didn't think I had a problem because that was my life. That's the way I was supposed to live. And somebody told me that you're not supposed to live this way.
Yeah, but we call it the norm, right? Like, that's your norm. Like, my norm, I mean, you and I, we've spoken over the past couple of days, right? Like, my norm is depression. I go to my norm. I don't go to my drugs or alcohol. I've never reached out for drugs, but it's like alcohol was always my norm. But it's like I didn't. And you are not doing that as well. So it's like, I think the important message to a lot of people is like, what's your norm? What's your norm? And then because I can say this with a smile. I mean, Anthony, I was in a dark place yesterday and the day before. But here, knowing the tools and the people that I have that I can reach out to, I'm like, okay, I'm still here. And I think that's the message that I really want to get across to people who join, this platform, where it's like, my God, you've gone through it. I've gone through it. We're not alone. And in all honesty, once it's your friend, it's always your friend. It's always here on your shoulder going, come on, Tanya, take a drink. Come on, Tanya, take, jump. But this is why I wanted to do this, because you're not alone. Nobody is alone.
Nobody is alone. No matter how you feel.
Nobody
is alone.
Yeah.
And that is an important message, because that's the message I heard in the beginning. When a police officer, of all people in my life during that time, it was a police officer that asked me if I wanted some help. Now, I'm pretty sure other people might have said that, because here I am living on the streets, I haven't showered, strung out, and finally this man asked me if I wanted some help. And at that point in time, I was done. There comes a point in time when you're going to hit that rock bottom.
You're done.
When you're done. And the thing is when you're done, this is where I believe, and this is me, I believe God speaks the loudest. Because when you say, I'm done, that all of a sudden that voice says, okay, I hear you. And that police officer was my little angel, and he said, hey, don't you want to get some help? I'm like, yes. Now, out of all the times I've been in and out of jail, been arrested, I've never said yes, but at that moment in time, I said yes, and that was the catalyst to my change. And doors open.
Hey, I want to stop you right there. You said I was the catalyst of my change.
Yes, because I had to make a decision.
That's a message to everybody, for all of us who struggle with mental health issues. We need to be the catalyst of change for ourselves. Use our story, our experiences, right? So, like you and I, we've gone through dark stuff. But it's being that catalyst. So when you just said that catalyst, word. I was like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Still
it is.
affecting me. It's still affecting me right now. I mean, I got like a TMZ thing from, Harvey Levin, and I'm like, no, like, this is my mental health. Like, you need to pay attention to what is good for you.
Yes, and you said something really huge. This is my mental health. Because once the drinking stops, the thinking still continues.
Yeah.
And emotions get raw. Because, see, I no longer had anything to anesthetize myself with. Once I stopped drinking and using, it's like, okay, now I have to face me. I have to face all those early years of that childhood stuff. It just comes up. And sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it's unconscious.
So how do you navigate through that?
Right now, I just acknowledge it. It's like, I hurt. I feel. Okay? And I also acknowledge I am not 6 years old anymore.
Right.
I can't change the past. That's not going to happen. But how do I deal with these feelings? And I had to, when I first got sober and turned my life around, I was literally emotionally illiterate. Okay, I could feel, but I couldn't tell you how I felt.
So what is emotionally, like, because I know there are people out there who are struggling. So what does, you and I both know, but for the general population, what does emotionally illiterate, like, mean?
It means that you can feel it, but you can't describe to another person what you feel.
You're right.
All of those glad, sad, mad, exasperated, all of those terms, I didn't know. All I knew, I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And and I can admit it, even as an adult, I would cry because people would say, well, what's wrong with you? And the only thing I can say is, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And I'm with you on that. And I think your transparency and my transparency and our vulnerability and just going, you know what, people, it's hard. And just getting really real with people, it's hard. And, it's hard. And sometimes the people that you reach out to, who are your, like, family, sometimes they don't know how to handle or how to cope or how to navigate through, certain pain. We don't know. They don't know. We know. We know because we go to our default. We go into depression. We go into, there's a knife in my hand. There's a suicidal thought. Like but for the general population, like how do we address you're not alone?
Right. Well, number one, I think it's really important that you're able to put yourself in an environment where people are even willing to say, are you okay?
Are you okay? Thank you.
Are you okay?
Thank you for saying that. I have two sisters, and I will say that it's like one will say, are you okay? The other one will say, are you okay? They know I battle with emotional issues. They know I battle with depression. And I'm not calling them out at all. I'm just saying, if you're struggling and you are listening to this podcast or this program, I don't know what we call it, but anyway, but if you're listening, like, my God, you're not alone, people. You're not alone.
Right. And you can, and that takes time because, see, again, it's up to you as the catalyst to make sure that you seek out those environments that's going to reinforce your health.
Right.
And how do you know if you're in the right environment? Someone will say, are you okay? Versus, what's wrong with you?
Oh.
Okay. If you hear somebody,
there's so much wrong with me. Am I okay? Right? I get that. I like
that. And I had to discover that if someone, and I believe everybody tries. Some people just don't know how to reach other people.
Yeah.
And if
They don't know how to really connect.
Right. And if they're dealing with their own stuff, it's hard for them to connect with you because they're still battling their own inner demons.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And so for me, I think it's critical, and I got introduced to that in the beginning because I didn't know. I mean, the environment that I come from, if I'm sitting there sad, nobody's going to say, "Are you okay?" They're just going to say, "Get over it."
Yeah. No.
Get over it. Man up. They used to tell me, just man up.
Don't ever say that. If we walk away from anything from today's communication, don't ever say get over it, man up, move on.
Exactly.
Don't ever do that. We need to connect with people. We're not connecting with them, and
this is why I think it's important that we're here today.
So tell us about Brown Manor, because I'll tell you, like growing up in Laguna, California, and then in LA, where homelessness and Todd Spitzer and all these people, all these politicians were trying to get rid of homelessness and all. What are you doing? Because you are creating Brown Manor, and I want I just don't want all that hoopla, all that the politician stuff, all the politics, right? I want you to share with people right now, what is Brown Manor? Because if I'm homeless, which I probably will be, who knows? Nobody is immune.
No one.
No one is immune to homelessness. No one.
Nobody.
I don't care who you are, where you live, where you have come from. We have all experienced some sort of financial hardship. But I want Brown Manor to shine. So, because I've seen the construction, and tell us about it.
Well, Brown Manor is a place where you can get a hand up, not a handout, first of all. Because I believe that once you discover who you are, you're able to contribute to become a better you.
Yeah.
And that's what that entire milieu is set up for. Now, just to give you a quick background, since I got my life in order 25 years ago, I went to school. I have a
You're a
master's. Yeah, I have a master's degree in nursing, and actually in California, I'm recognized as a nurse practitioner. Now, something happened that transitioned from being that person with all these felonies to a person who is a nurse practitioner, and I smile because just recently, Governor Newsom granted me a pardon. So now all that stuff is taken care of.
Nice.
And so having that in my education and my experience allowed me to create an environment in which is structured for change. And I studied homelessness. I mean, I literally wrote papers on it. I wrote a book about it. I lived it. And one of the things I find intriguing...
Let's stop you there. What's the name of your book?
Okay. My book is From Park Bench to Park Avenue.
Right.
And it is my autobiography. And it just tells you exactly what happened. And it was very cathartic for me writing that book because I got to explore some stuff that was in that closet. And once you start actually taking an honest look and an in-depth look of your life, it's going to be painful emotionally. Mm-hmm. Because I had to uncover, discover, and discard some of the things that was preventing me from growing into the person I am today. And that's a lot of soul searching, and a lot of people...
Say those three things. Undiscover or discover?
Uncover, discover, and discard.
Perfect.
If things is not working. Because a lot of times, people will start looking at their past, but then emotionally it gets painful, so you just shut the door on it. Mm-hmm. And try to sweep it underneath the carpet. And what I've recognized is when I do that, I'm wondering, well, how come I can't form a specific relationship with a group of people? Why do I feel uncomfortable in certain environments? It's because there's some unresolved stuff. And so by doing that and exploring, and I encourage people, even if you just start out with something small as journaling.
Yeah.
Walk through the pain. It's not going to kill you. And there's, what is that saying? If it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. That's true. And
I'm so freaking strong, but I get it. I'm just like, okay, Lord Jesus, like I get it.
Yeah, because there's a combination of tools that you tend to develop. Again, it's the journaling, it's the praying, it's the belief, it's the environment.
It's letting go.
It's letting go.
Letting go of people who, it's letting go of people who don't serve you anymore. A mission from Michael was like my first exposure to, like, my first experience, not even like exposure. It was my first experience of like facilitating groups and, Trip, right? Trip, and Trip is Michael's dad. And from that, Michael is Trip's dad. To me, I know Trip. And through Trip, I knew Michael. And that is how a mission for Michael transpired through Dr. Grenice and his wife and Trip. And sometimes you just need to go, wow, like there's so much to offer. We've gone through, all of us have gone, mine is nothing different. The only thing that is different is that my trauma, my tragedy was shared with the entire world. Outside of that, there are Nicoles every single day. There is trauma happening every day. There's everything happening every day. It's connecting with the people who you feel matter and who can help you make a difference. Because at the same time, it's like we all come to the table with different degrees, experiences, and I'm not gonna walk somebody through trauma. I'm not. It's beyond my scope. I could, but I'm not licensed, and I'm not going to. I think the most important thing about moving forward in 2025 and in like every moment of our life is like, my God, pay attention. Be still. Be still. Because you do not know who is sitting in front of you at the movie theater. You never know what somebody is going through. But we're so wrapped up in being busy and this and that, where it's like, well, let's kind of just like, let's bring it down. Let's chill out. Make trauma addressing kind of like enjoyable, where it's like, because I've got a couple of clients of mine right now, and I'm like, I am so proud of you. And they're like, why? And I'm like, oh my God, because you have no idea what is on the other side for you. You have no idea. And I think people are just so scared to walk through trauma and tragedy, and they're scared. And I get it. And
right.
I get it too.
Yeah, and most of the time people are in fear because they think they're going to be alone. They feel that who really can understand me? Right. And I want people to know, because I come from being homeless, a drug addict, in and out of jails, childhood abuse, but I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's been through that. And so my goal in life is to be public. My goal in life is to help others find a voice. Yeah. We are not alone.
Like, I want to cup your face right now, and I'm cupping your face, right? Like you're not alone. And you've gone. I mean, I've gone through my own stuff, but Anthony, you've gone through your. It's like I would just say, it's like I just want to cut my hands in your face. But I think that's what that's what we should create, in this conversation is helping people like understand, because you and I, we can go on for hours and hours and days, but it's like maybe our collaboration here is to really like just help people understand, like, damn, you're not like, excuse my language, okay? Because I threw a couple of F-bombs the other night when you and we were talking, because I was in a really bad place, but I want a partner in crime. I want a partner in crime who can go, okay, this is what we need to do. You have your license, I have my my certifications, but we know enough people to help people like navigate through life chaos. Like I just don't want people to live in pain.
Right. And it's really important, and I'm glad you brought something up, because we did have a conversation the other day, and you did walk through it. I know I'm going to put you on the spot, but okay. How were you able to walk through that to see the other side of the road?
I think because I had an outlet. I reached out for help. I picked up the phone.
Okay. And
honestly, like I reached out to my sisters. They didn't respond, and it's no fault to their own. I think you and I and people in our community, in our not our community, but like for the people who we want to help and serve. There are some people who just, they don't want to deal with it. I mean, Anthony, like I told you, like I was in a bad place. I had a knife in my hand, but this is it. If I didn't have the tools to equip me, to get me out of that state of mind, I would not be here today.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing with me. It's the tools. I'm the individual, but now I have different tools, and I utilize them completely different to get the positive effect. And once that occurs, it makes me want to use that same tool again whenever I encounter a similar situation. Because in my life, sometimes, life is not linear. Okay, yeah. Life has ups and downs. That's just the way life is. Life
gets like a mountain.
Right. You think you're soaring on a jet, instead you discover you're a butterfly. You just bouncing all over the place.
And you're not.
And it's okay. That's okay, because now, since I know life is going to be lifey, then how do I navigate life when it gets lifey?
Yeah, and I like that. When life gets lifey, I like that. I do. I like that. It's like I can show up, I can rally, and I can do it. But man, you walked me through it, and it's really important for all of us to have our core people who, shame on me. I shouldn't have reached out to my sister. I shouldn't have. She lost her son. She didn't understand me. She was like, Tanya, I can't carry that. I can't carry it. And before Aaron died, she was always my person. Minnie was always my person. And I need to learn how to, she can't be my person right now. She can't. But I know people who can be her person. We need to find our people. And that's important, because I'm just like you, the same similarities. Whenever the proverbial stuff hits the fan, what do I do for the moment? At the point of impact, it can be devastating. It could be crippling. You can get hit so hard that you can't even breathe. And that's how I was. But then I realized when I got that message from her, because I'm the baby of the family, and I'm selfish with my time. I'm selfish with everything. It's the reason why I never wanted children. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm 55 now. When I was 24 and all my sisters were having kids, I'm like, how do I do this? Like, I was 24. Now at 55, I'm like, I'm still that baby sister who wishes she could have her older sister, not knowing that her older sister lost her kid. And it is so profound, and it's scary, and it's lonely. But you know, I wanted to show up for today, and we need to show up.
And I'm
You need
glad
to show up. But if you're not ready to show up, don't show up. Today
Right,
I was
right.
ready to show up.
Well, I'm glad you were ready. I'm glad. See, for me, nothing happens
And that was
by
scary.
mistake.
You were like, "Oh my God, are you doing this?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I forgot. Oh my God." Because I had gone through all this, you know, for the past, you know, like couple of days of depression and dark spaces. But here we are.
Here you are, Christmas balls and all. and that's so cool because again, you know, sometimes just take it moment by moment and
That's
just
right.
let me get through the moment. And that's where I think prayers come in a lot. You know, what
End us in prayer. Let's do that.
you want to end in prayer?
Yeah.
Okay.
You do that.
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to come together and have this conversation and share it with the world. Lord, you know what's in our heart. You know what the world needs. And if they can just have a moment of what Tanya and I feel right now to be able to share and have somebody to share with, we just want to grant that for everybody. Lord, just give them a moment, Lord. Just a moment of silence, a moment of a peaceful heart and a quiet mind, Lord, so that messages such as this can just penetrate them, even if it's just a second or a glimpse or just an opportunity to be able to know that they're not alone and, you know, they can walk through different things and there is help and solution out there, Lord. I ask that those ears be open and those eyes be open and those hearts be open and that we are able to carry a message that have depth and weight. And I want to thank you, Lord, for having Tanya spend her time with me to share her life and her time. And I really appreciate the fact that you brought us together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Oh my gosh. Okay, we need to do this again. Do you feel good about it?
I do. I feel good because I get to share time with you.
I just feel like I need a smile, and when I'm with you, I feel like I just want to like, it's like, okay, you hear like, you know, like people who have like cows, you know, not to say that you're a cow or a sow, but it's like, oh, you know, it's the aggressive, like, oh, it's a cow, and I just want to just like squeeze it and make it pop, you know? And I just remember my childhood cat, Kitty, and it was like, can I just like squeeze you? I just want to squeeze you. You know, and it's like you don't want to make the kitty pop or anything like that, but it's kind of like, oh, I just love you and I just want to squeeze you and love on you. And Anthony, you are what I need. You're what I need. You're right there. And I want Brown Manor to succeed. And I know we didn't go much into that, but you know, let's maybe, you know, do it for another time with, you know, your friend who's setting this all up. But I think it's really important because homelessness, man, anybody is this far away from homelessness.
That is absolutely correct. That is so correct.
I don't care who you are, how much money you have. I've had to ask, in all transparency, I've had to ask my friends to help pay my rent because I did a huge move from California to Naples, and it was like in all honesty, I really wish I never moved, because then I'd have my savings to kind of live off of. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're here, and we're all struggling. And if we can be just some sort of hope.
Yes, and that's what we bring, and that's definitely
Some sort of
something
hope.
that we encourage.